off with an excellent presentation by none other than Nathan Kim. Nathan Kim has had the privilege of working in IT security field for over 20 years, implementing, integrating, and managing various security solutions and technologies, including security and information event management, or SIEM, network intrusion detection and prevention systems, IDPS, and for the past nearly 4 years, cybersecurity analytics and big data. Nathan is developing and implementing security analytics for IBM's CIO network as Chief Network Security Analytics Architect. Nathan has also been privileged to serve the Raleigh ISSA chapter, starting as an InfoSeCon conference volunteer, track chair, and recently has been a board member from 2014 to 2019. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Nathan.
Thank you very much, Harrison. Thank you so much for a warm welcome. And I am so excited to be able to give a presentation. I'm so grateful that Raleigh ISSA has given me the opportunity to present on this topic of security analytics at the virtual, even in virtual setting for InfoSeCon. This conference has been very dear to me for past 14 years. Since I joined Raleigh ISSA, the first thing that I ended up doing was volunteering for InfoSeCon as a way to meet other security professionals in the area and also to get to know and just to expand my relationship, networking relationships. So finally, even though I have been on the board and working closely with other committed members and colleagues for the event, I finally get to present. So I am very excited and also at the same time a little bit anxious and worried. But I hope you will excuse me for some of the things as I am secretly introvert. So let's go ahead and kick it off. So again, this is today's topic is security analytics and how to apply data analytics for cybersecurity. And we had Harrison already gave a good intro for me. So let's talk about this presentation. This is not a sales pitch. I do not, I will not be endorsing any product. It's about the field. It's about upcoming techniques and how to prepare for the future in our field of cybersecurity, securing our environment, our assets, our organization, and people at the core of it all. Didn't involve any testing or cruel treatment of real animals. And my opinions are expressed here and not necessarily they are endorsing any companies or anyone, organizations I am involved with. So let's talk about the security challenges that we're all facing. And these all have been well documented, published, and it's all about the changes, right? Assets, what we have to protect. If you think about how we are now using more and more cloud services. So what we used to protect in the past were all in a data center somewhere or in our cubicles, perhaps even longer than that. But now they are more and more residing somewhere else. A funny description of cloud I heard is it's somebody else's computer, right? They are all running in somebody else's computers in some other data centers. Of course, the scale is much larger, what have you. Assets, the data the form and formats and how fast they are changing. All this is changing. Environment, again, we do have on-prem networks, but especially in today's in this time of pandemics and what have you, our environment is no longer even inside the companies. We do use our company services or networks over VPNs and what have you, but most of people are working from home. So environment has changed. Um, our adversaries are changing. Used to be just hacker groups, but you have heard more and more state-sponsored groups are now taking part in hacking and um, damaging what we hold dear. Our arsenals have been also changing. The security solutions that we have been implementing have been getting better, and they have been um, changing as well. So this is all part of the changes that we must consider. Oh, so what does this all changes mean? It's just more complexity, right? I mean, all these data that we are trying to protect, people that are using this data, the networks, the components, all these things are interconnected. And as they are getting interconnected, the complexity grows. This also means there must be skill sets that need to be getting better, right? More skill sets to um, admin or manage all these different data sets in different environment and different networks, how they're connected. All the security solutions we are deploying, they must be managed and require different skill sets, perhaps changing skill sets, right? Now, so as we fill out, as we post more open positions to require this, to acquire people with these changing skill sets. A lot of times they go unfulfilled. We try to grow people from inside, but again, there aren't enough people to fill all these open positions or changing positions. So let's think about some past and the present, good old days. We had all our adversaries typically on the outside. We had what we call perimeters, you know, demarcation points. We typically had bad guys on the outside. Our goal was to keep them out. We just had to watch guard at a known point and then do our job. And of course, it was challenging, but it was rather well understood, right? We could trust people on the inside, right? If people were inside our corporate network, they were trustworthy, they were vetted. So we didn't have to watch a lot of, um, activities, what was going on the inside, right? Um, However, now things changed. Adversaries are still out there, bad guys still trying to get in. Now, however, more and more um, facts are coming out or evidence saying that these adversaries are actually inside our network. They are inside our castle. They have already burrowed in. So we no longer we're trying to just keep the bad guys outside, but we need to be ready. We need to be looking because we expect them to be on the inside as well. And of course, not everyone on the inside can be trusted because when there are so many temptations, like meeting somebody special, when you just get all those invites, hey, somebody is going to click on that, right? So what does this all mean? Basically, we're just left with so much to know about. We're not just trying to find out who is trying to get in, but we're trying to figure out who is trying to get out or getting out, and with what? In the end, I have heard that when it comes down to what we have to stop is we need to stop data exfil. It's in some ways it's almost pessimistic, right? They are not. We are no longer even trying to stop. We are trying to stop bad guys from borrowing in or getting in, but it's gotten to a point that, you know what, some are expected, so let's stop the data exfil. It's just it's just the state of time, right? So what does this mean? It's a lot of data that we must be able to work with and consume, and um, make make this data talk to us. Um, when you have to work with a lot of data, your screen is filled with lines and lines, and you need a lot of help, right? Perhaps even cats. And in the end, your data resources, yeah, who knows? You know, your laptop catch fire. So my attempt to bring some interesting things to the presentation. So SIMs help, right? We have as a way to correlate all this discrete data that's coming from our firewalls, our intrusion prevention systems, even routers and switches, and other security solutions that we have deployed over time. SIM is there to make sense out of these. Now, however, it's not perfect solution, right? So a lot of times it's complex to deploy because all these data points that sources, when they have to be connected, you got to work with the admins, you got to make the data flow correctly, you got to work with the limitations of the SIMs, and change the format, and then make sure all these formats fit into the format that SIMs can understand and then digest. It takes time, even after you have connected all the solutions, to tune. You have to set up the policies, rules, um, and it can be expensive, not just the solution itself, but even after that, because sometimes some of the solutions are charged based on the usage. Every single event that is sent to the SIM, whether they are used or not, will be counted toward license fees or service fees. A lot of times, it's easy to inundate these SIMs with lots of noise, and a lot of times they are set ones, red. Um, do they all turn out to be actionable items? That depends on how you set up these SIMs, right? And the SIMs are sometimes limited in capacity too. You can't send everything. So a lot of times you do not, even though the storages are getting cheaper and cheaper, it is finite space you have to work with. Um, it is it seems that now even SIMs are moving to the cloud space, but again, you have to consider the capacity as well. It also leaves little room for running ad hoc queries for analysis and threat hunting. And a lot of times, these originating data sources are sending limited sets of data. They are not sending a lot. Many times they are sending security events only. In the past, firewalls were not even logging allowed traffic due to the limitation in the log servers and what have you. Only blocked traffic or only above certain levels were sent. Now things may be changing. But even then, when you send, a lot of times, not everything is being sent to these SIM solutions. Even after that, running ad hoc queries or systematic queries for a whole environment can be very expensive on these devices. So little less to say, a lot of times SIMs gives you that idea that everything is on fire. And when you work with fires a lot, you tend to miss what is not fire, Sev 1, Sev 2 problems. And the hackers are driven to make sure that little noise is um, created so that they can fly under the radar and exfil the data, because their objective is not to be caught. And a lot of times, the evidence or things that we must pay attention to are hidden or missed because we are so busy um, um, dealing with these daily Sev ones. So over the years, in my past experience, I had the opportunity to talk with some executives, customers who are interested in solutions beyond SIMs. And what they have asked is, they still wonder, some of the challenging questions they have to ask is, what is on my network today? Who is getting on and doing business? And how would I know when there is a threat? And these are CIOs, CSOs, they are asking these questions. And even with all these um, diverse set of security solutions, you still are not able to answer those questions readily, because a lot of times we are so focused on only dealing with alerts that does not give us overview of the whole environment, what is occurring. And some of the challenges is also coming from the fact that we have network teams. A lot of times we have security teams, and the tool sets are different, and they are not talking to each other, right? So the security questions of this network, what is happening today in my environment, is still a challenge and difficult to answer. Is there a help on the horizon? We hear a lot about this today. Automation, SOAR, and automation this, automation that. We have a lot of security tools that are even capable of automating. We have even IT solutions such as Ansible that is going to help us with automation, right? But we still have to program this. These are not, out of the box. They know exactly what to do. We as human with intelligence must tell these things what to take action on and how to do it. Once we program them, they will be good. Now, of course, there are more and more canned or template automations that are being produced, but we, again, human must decide what to apply and what not to apply. Artificial intelligence that we hear a lot about, machine learning, it's still limited. More and more people are coming out and saying, hey, it's a buzzword. It's not, artificial intelligence is not that intelligent, or it's very still limited. Don't get me wrong. We do have machine learning, artificial intelligence solutions that have been working well, and they are getting better and better. For instance, a lot of spam filtering or our email, they have been using this machine learning techniques or um, algorithms for many years, and they have been getting so much better, right? We see so much less of these spam or even um, things because of these solutions. So they are getting better, but they are not going to be that super intelligent, right? Knowing everything, right? We can't just pop these things into our network and they cannot just start working because um, just we'll talk more about that. Um, so when you have to work with our monitor network, sometimes it feels like this. So what is this game? What does this remind you? Some of you might already have guessed. This is the game, Where's Waldo, right? So how fast can you found, how soon can you find him? Maybe some of you already picked him, right? And sometimes it feels like this, right? We're looking at the network, we're looking at our and the security arena and trying to find the object, right? Our interest. And a lot of times it is difficult. We do have rules, we do have policies to find them, we have security solutions, but in the end, it's the we are working with a lot of different noises and confusing um, evidence that we must deal with. Now, even this actually, no applying right techniques, you can find the Waldo in our case right in the middle. That is right in the middle. Fast. Actually, you can use vision uh, technology and artificial machine learning technologies to find if we know what we are looking for.
Technologies used within those domains. So, yeah, nice.
So,
So they picked the four for you. You picked the sector. So I chose healthcare, which is
all right.
funny because the FBI just put out that advisory about Ryuk.
So, major challenges in identifying threats. Um, One of the hardest thing that we are experiencing, especially at a network level or organ enterprise level, it's the visibility. It's hard to see overall um, state of network. Where are things? How are they communicating? How one component affects the other? When we see the network connections, for instance, what's being allowed, what's being blocked, how do we put context around those?
Yeah, that'd be great.
And
I actually just
context
noticed
is oftentimes
track
provided when we have good inventory of things, the devices that are on our network, the users, and credentials, all these IDs that are using the data or uh, initiating the connections and what have you. Okay, let me.
That's why I kind of want to talk to someone who's actually.
And also all this data we are working is a lot of times when you get to the enterprise level, they have what we call 3 V's of big data: velocity, veracity, and variety. Velocity meaning the speed, veracity, the volume, and what have you, and variety, different types of logs that we must be able to process and then put together, right? And and this is the very reason that we sometimes need, we are actually trying to find additional way to give all this the visibility in the end with context um, for organizations. And that is the reason for applying analytics. And Harrison, was there questions that we need to answer? We're almost halfway. Okay. How are we doing? Silence. So, okay, I see a question here. What is worse, no SIM or a SIM that goes unmanaged? Well, I think you know the answer. They make little difference to me. Yes, it almost similar to, you know, what is worse, having no firewall or firewalls with full of holes. Um, Both give false sense of security. Um, but if you have to pick, perhaps even SIM that goes unmanaged or firewalls that have full of holes, maybe even worse because you already spent the money. I, again, my personal view. um, Thank you for the question. So let's go through the analysis and analytics because you have heard of analysis, and this is something that we actually do a lot of times in on day to during our day-to-day um, uh, uh, during our jobs. It's a matter of scale. One is component of the other. Analysis is part of analytics. What's different is the data analysis, the process of examining, transforming, and arranging these data so that we can perform the tasks. Um, it, it becomes the part of analytics. Now let me. So we are taking data analytics to security analytics. Data analytics has been around for years. We've been using that in many different fields. It is data analytics is systematic, computational analysis of data, right? Discovery, interpretation, and communication of meaningful patterns that exist in data. um, Organizations, we apply these to business data to predict marketing or sales, um, and even pandemic. You've seen a lot of data science being applied for pandemic data. Um, John Hopkins, many of you have seen beautiful dashboard. John Hopkins put together and many dashboards now exist, but that was one good example that I still remember that came out as a result of beautiful data science analytics work. Um, so all this includes data analytics includes collection, organization, storage, and all the tools that are involved and techniques that make this happen. Security analytics is not much different. It's just applying all those know-hows, technologies, tool sets for now security data. That is because systematic analysis for network and security events is becoming more and more critical. It helps us to respond better for incident response. And not only ad hoc, only when we need to see certain sets of data, but doing it consistent in an automated fashion to detect, shore up anomalies that would go undetected um, is becoming more and more critical. And we need to be able to do this in scale. Dealing with big data, a lot of times the big data that we could not take a look at because of the volume, because of the size of it, can be done by analytics. So some sample data. Here are two different sets of data. For instance, one set is postal code for Toronto. Another is postal code with longitude and latitude. These could be put together and create a one table or um, uh, now when you have this data, this can be applied or utilized against a Foursquare API. I'm using that as a sample. Again, all this is a sample of data analysis and science techniques. When you put this, basically the idea is putting all these different sets of data together to create one larger set, what we call enriched data. And now using this, and this is first five of much larger, perhaps hundreds of rows of data or thousands and millions. Again, when we use different sets, you can do some interesting things. You can ask, hey, so we were able to applying the postal code of Toronto for a city, and then using longitude and latitude, we were able to interrogate an API of existing service, and we could extract all the venues within those neighborhoods or within the postal code. Now, you can actually ask more pinpointed questions like, hey, I like coffee. How many venues are there that sell coffee? 498 out of 3,700 total venues within the city. Now, what are some unique coffee venues that are not national or international chains? 151. You can even apply machine learning techniques to even identify a cluster of these venues. So if you have to pick one spot that you can visit and have most success or most concentration of those unique venues, coffee shops that you can visit when you're in Toronto, you can do that. This is again a sample of data science techniques. And now imagine applying those different data sets and using similar techniques and ask different questions so that you can help with identifying threats and finding new topics so that your threat hunters can go after. And that's the idea. The anomaly detection, this has been actually around for quite some time. They do this a lot. Data science use this. And we are doing this for science as well. And the idea is once you identify the groups that are clustered together, the outliers that are way outside would be what we consider outliers, and those are anomalies. And many times, actually, those outliers are a lot of times discarded in many settings because hey, those outliers do not help us identify the pattern of these normal clusters or normal populations. Now, for security, however, those outliers are very interesting. We need to go after what are those outliers doing. Um, However, the challenge is in network securities and cyber securities, identifying what is normal and what is abnormal is a challenge. So many different traffics exist and so many different clusters of user base exist. And this is where the challenge is for artificial intelligence based solutions sometimes face. We expect them to be able to come into our network, observe our network for a week or two, and then spit out useful information. A lot of times it takes a lot more than that. It requires data sets from our network, our environment, our organization to give them some labels, some context. And when those are not ready, they become challenged, and that causes for us to gain diminished return on our investment. The analytics is good for changing discrete data points to patterns so that we can identify relationships. And in the end, what we are after is trying to figure out the relationships. Because once you figure out the relationships, it's a lot easier from beginning to end, how these points are, the events that we are seeing on our IPS, on our switches, routers, and our endpoint devices, how they are connected to one another. That is a huge boost to our effort to identify the threat. So this relationship would be quite easier with I'm sorry, security analytics because they have been, well, already the techniques already exist to reveal these relationships. And quite readily, there are lots of built-in libraries or tools that are available to reveal this once you have that enriched data. So some of the sample, here's a sample security analytics flow. So for instance, imagine you have DNS cache logs. And a lot of times these are large. Um, these are millions and perhaps billions for some large organizations. A lot of times they are not looked at because it's now we're coming to the point where more and more security solutions are coming out even for DNS layer, but a lot of organizations perhaps have not been able to look into these logs, how they help. But these are worth of information. Now, there are threat feeds, threat intelligence solutions that help us with categorization of these. Now, combining those, you will be able to identify who is looking for domain name queries for certain categories. Let's say, hey, who is interested in, who is trying to talk to certain domain names that are related with command and control, malware, phishing, or crypto mining, who is going to gambling sites. A lot of times, this one suspicious or malicious sites lend the victims to be vulnerable to other types of threats. So let's connect that to our firewall logs, our IPS logs, and even EDR logs. Yes, SIM solutions are getting a lot of these logs, but can we submit queries that perhaps um, look for data that are not going to the SIM, or again, a lot of these SIMs have some of the limitations that may not render themselves easily searchable. So analytics, however, we can even not only do this ad hoc basis, but also program these so that they can be done even humans have to take a look at. So we can apply different methods, different analytics, different weighing methods, so that we can do a lot of this in scale before and categorize them so that different groups of security teams that we have in our enterprises can look at different topics, different data. Now, again, a lot of these analytics output can be also stored in a database and repository so that they can actually be accessed by different security teams for their investigation. One of the things that I have captured here is a sample output of initial analysis that have been performed using sample data, for instance, DNS logs to identify where they are going. And many of these are can be categorized as different security categories. Again, things that are of interest to us, something that we should be finding after. You know, these are being allowed, especially if these are being allowed to go out, and many times DNS traffics are allowed to go out. DNS traffic also can be used as a tunnel for communication between malicious sites, botnet hurdlers, and um, infected devices on our network. Can we detect those? And if we are not securing DNS traffic, perhaps they are already having unimpeded um, traffic communication. So the goal is to increase the context, again, to increase the visibility. And this is all to reduce the time to detect, respond, and mitigate. This helps us to detect internal risks and in the end, prevent data exfil. Um, we have had CIS critical controls. Many of you are very familiar with this. CIS control tells us that we need to have good inventory of control of hardware and hardware assets, software assets, vulnerability management, and who has admin privileges, hardware configurations, laptops and workstations and servers, and maintaining these monitoring analysis of audit logs. All this become the foundation or critical components for good analytics, because all this information, even though they may be in different databases, in different formats, analytics will allow us to basically tap into these repository data sets, and you can dump those out or query them if they have APIs perhaps available. And again, analytics can take advantage of this, and more of this you have, it becomes easier for you to deploy analytics program in your organization. The good thing about analytics is that once you get started, it will help you describe what happened. It's going to take a shorter time to describe what is happening inside your network, whether it is good or bad. And as you mature, you will be able to diagnose why it happened faster because you are connecting the dots. After that, we can start predicting what is likely to happen because we have seen the patterns and how to even in the future, how to prevent prevent some of these bad things from happening, right? Now that, of course, it takes more maturity and it gets more difficult, but the value gets bigger as it gets more complex, but we can definitely start. Now you have heard many times that it takes months to detect or find out that a network has been expelled, usually by somebody outside, perhaps law enforcement, or when your data is published by the hackers or being starting to be sold on black market. As we go through this maturity process, we will be able to identify those faster and faster because we are going to see what is happening on in our environment sooner. And as we deploy the analytics, we can now start from one end of MITRE attack framework, starting with the data exfil perhaps, and then move to the left. Now, the reason I say exfil is perhaps the most important one is because we can start identifying who is doing what and trying to start from there. There are obviously lots of evidences that MITRE ATT&CK framework gives us guidance to, and known examples or evidences that we should be looking for, the relationships that we should be looking for, and we can expand our use cases, analytics, the application even in a greater scale. Now, the benefit I call side benefit or fringe benefit for having analytics is not just you get to detect this fast. I think it helps us freeing up skilled talent to perform higher critical, more critical jobs. They can now start delegating those lower priority jobs to analytics, automated tasks, jobs, and then go after more jobs, tasks that require higher intelligence. So it would be better utilization of your in-house skills that you don't have enough of. And I think this increases job satisfaction for those who are being tasked to secure our environment. And obviously, this gives us more room to go after now truly more advanced solutions and technologies, what we call cognitive solutions, right? And machine learning, really artificial intelligence, because a lot of times you don't have enough time to do the research and then even do proof of concept when some of these security solutions are at your disposal, right? Because you're too busy fighting daily fires. So now, can we just buy analytic solutions? Because truth be told, we are seeing more of these solutions now in starting to pop up in the market. More people are saying, hey, we do artificial intelligence, we do analytics. I think perhaps you know all this very well, that not all of this is going to fit right in, right? No one size fits all solutions, right? How many times have you seen that? And a lot of times, these will require upfront investment, right? Of course, hardwares, softwares, and even skilled people. Many of these solutions will require quite a big footprint. They are, even in virtual settings, they need to be quite beefy. Are you ready to make the investment? And another thing about the investment is once you make that, people are going to start looking for returns, right? Heavier the investment, expectation is going to be larger. And again, a lot of these environments will require highly skilled resources to manage and make use out of. So it's a double-edged sword. I say yes, you can, but once we are educated, experienced, once we know what to look for, how to utilize this, we will make better shoppers. And that's why I'm always for educating security professionals, because that makes us better shoppers, more intelligent shoppers, and then we can ask intelligent questions and expect and then find intelligent answers from our vendors who are our partners, right? Component of successful analytics, I would say we need the people who know how to apply these already existing techniques and who know where the data exists in every organization. Every organization is going to have different data points, data sets at different places in their network. And once you connect those two, the platform is going to come next. And it doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to be big to get started. I would.
Hey, Nathan.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt, but you have 10 minutes remaining.
Great. I got only 2 slides left. So thank you. So I would say let's start with people getting educated, getting familiar with the techniques and the data, what you can do with the data, and then start identifying platforms. Because once you scale out, it will require some platform, but perhaps even a data lake, um, and or just analytics platform that you may end up procuring. Again, with the right people, knowing what data you have and how to get value out of it, all those choices will be intelligent and will be able to um, turn into fruit or a good return in shorter time. Some of the resources that I would recommend are through places like Coursera. They have tons of data science, analytics related topics, big data, visualization of data. Some of these are available at a very reasonable prices. Cognitive class.ai also have a lot of these classes for free. Applied data science with Python is highly recommended. They even have deep learning. And if you would like to see what um, security fields are doing for forensics, network forensics, because network forensics can have a lot of the evidence that we can quickly use for analytics. SENS Advanced Network Forensics course is, again, a very good one. Of course, there are other wonderful courses from SENS. Now, the tools, you can get started with something like Anaconda Python Toolkit, which you can download to your desktop or laptop and run. There are some free personal free editions that you can get started to start your analytics work that provides some platform for analytics work, data mining, and what have you, and even dashboard setting. The languages, I would say Python is personal choice of mine because it just has so much libraries already available for data science, analytics, and visualization. It just, but there are so many other languages that you can, if you're familiar with, and that would be wonderful. Just get started, and I think this will have tremendous value for anyone who is interested in the field. And I think analytics has a great future and also quite a necessity for many organizations um, uh, trying to secure their environment better. And with that, I have reached the end of my presentation. I hope this was beneficial for you. And I will open it up for questions and um, comments.
Okay, so we only have about 7 minutes here to take
Okay.
questions. So we're going to do them in a first come, first serve for people who've already asked. I want to remind everybody that if you have a question that doesn't get answered, we have chat rooms and lounges open within VFairs for you guys. You can hang out, talk to sponsors, talk to other people, talk to some of the speakers, and it's a great way to network. So we'll go ahead and kick off the questions. Chris Dreppard asks, what is worse, no SIM or a SIM that goes unmanaged?
Yeah. So personally, I think they're about the same. But if you have to think about the fact that SIM that goes unmanaged actually took money. So in a way, it's even worse, right? Because it gives you false sense of security and you already made the investment. So you spent the money wrong. That money could have been used somewhere else. So for me, if you are going to have a SIM, but not manage it properly, why bother have it? It's as if it's, you know, but personal opinion of mine. Perhaps I'll change my mind, but again, when it goes unmanaged, it's money that could have been spent somewhere else and did not get spent.
All right. We have about 5 minutes remaining now. Gonna go to the next question here. Jesse Eversole asks, "How do you pick and choose what goes into a sim?"
How do you choose? That that is that is a good question. You do not want. You have to um, decide based on the capacity of sim and what it can digest. A lot of these sims will have already built-in engine or parser to receive your feed. So you cannot send everything. A lot of different sims, many mature sims have quite large set of um, parser, what I call, to basically make sense of it, make sense of the data that you can send. However, they are limited, right? Because they have to work with different data sets. You cannot just send everything. Now, there are quite a few, there are a couple that are well known to be able to receive everything. Um, Again, everything, but it comes with um, cost, right? When you send everything, you still got to make rules. Just because you can send everything, not that they can also make sense out of everything. Just you can send things, but you still have to build policies, rules in order to make intelligent alert out of those. You are not just looking for frequencies. You are trying to make meaning out of these events that you are sending. So in the end, you have to decide. There's no good rules, but go after high severity. Go after meaningful things that will give you actionable um, data on the other side of the sim. Just that's how I would um, um, send things to sim. But in the end, again, if you're sending only subsets of what's happening, you may be missing a lot out actually. And again, advanced hackers are not generating too much noise. So you out of the security solutions. Um, and so you have to be able to look at not just events that are coming out of hosts or the servers or endpoint devices. You have to be able to look at the network traffic. What is coming out of the device, whether somebody is complaining or not. So you must be able to correlate the events that are being seen from network-based security solutions and then connect that to host-based security solutions. Another one would be, what are your perimeter-based security solutions saying? Web content filtering